This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
My name is Solomon Ikiada, sitting in at the studio for Dr. Ken, who is still on vacation. Dr. Ken, it's been too long. Looks like it may be appropriate at this time to ask whether or not you have jackpot.
Yeah, by the way, we treated that topic, Japa, and now I'm beginning to understand what it means in real terms, of course, but old men don't do that. People who are seen it all cannot do that. It looks long to you because you call it vacation. But for me, it's been an opportunity to move around to see different aspects of life and globally so that I can contribute and discuss more meaningfully to the things that represent pain points for us. So I welcome listeners again today. Welcome to the discourse, and I hope you have a fantastic day with our brilliant guest.
Yes, it's an interesting topic that we have today. Is the law for man or is man for the law? See, most of our conversation will be centered on the premise that today in the studio we are fortunate to have law and economics rolled into one brilliant, sharp mind. I mean, Barrister Onwuka Igwe is a lawyer, he's an economist, and he's an arbitrator. He is a partner in SOA and Nefarious Solicitors. Barrister Igwe has authored several articles and books, including Law and Justice in the Service of Humanity. Barrister Igwe is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators of the United Kingdom and the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrators. He's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. Barrister Igwe is a lover of growth and development. So, like I said, most of our conversation is going to be centered on the premise that today in the studio, we are fortunate to have law and economics rolled into one mind. And being an arbitrator, the real arbitration I think listeners will be needing on this show is to resolve the issue of this forever nagging question. The law, is it made for man or is man made for the law? So welcome, Barrister Onwuka Igwe.
Thank you, Solomon.
Yes. Let's ask a question from an old saying. The law is an ass, as this old saying goes. So what is a brilliant man and a savvy intellectual like you doing in that profession?
Thank you, Solomon, and thank you, listeners. A savvy intellectual, I'll claim it. I will say, I will answer the second question first. I think I was called to be a lawyer.
Okay.
I think the legal profession found me. I did not find a legal profession. I believe that as a lawyer, I have the makings to represent the interests of people. There's nothing that is much more satisfying than advocating the interests of others. Each time I appear before a court, be it a tribunal, a state high court, a federal high court, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, I always feel this lump rise in my throat to indicate the depth of gratitude I owe to Providence for making me a lawyer. And I believe there is the optimal experience that one gets. I go into a particular level of appreciation whenever I do law, and it gets to a state that I do it in such a way that I don't remember. In fact, I go into a state of flow. What was described by the two authors, Miralles and Garcia, in their book Ikegai, the secret of the Japanese secret of long and happy life. And what they describe there is the state of flow, where you do not have to think about anything. And when you are doing it, you are like taking it, like when you're jogging. You're jogging at a certain stage, you don't even know your energy carries you, don't carry your energy along.
You are in the zone of your humanity.
Precisely.
Some people will say.
So I appreciate that it is a special gift from God that I am able to represent the interests, advocate for the protection of the interests of the especially the less privileged and the vulnerable in society. Then, with respect to whether the law is an ass, because I think it should be a question, my mind goes straight to the book written by Charles Dickens in 1938. Oliver Twist is the book. And in that book, there was a disputation with respect to family matters. And the court told the man who was the protagonist that, look, the law presupposes that your wife works under your direction. Scandalized, he riposted. He said, if the law supposes that, then the law must be an ass. The law must be an idiot. So what do we learn from this? What we learn from it is that the law on its own, applied rigidly, is an aberration.
Applied rigidly?
Yeah, rigidly, without recourse to a dosage of justice, a dosage of equity, fairness, reason. It makes the law look ridiculous, and it pushes the man on the street to go beyond waiting for the law. The man beyond in the street goes and looks out for himself and engages in what you call a self-help. Instead of waiting for the law to do self-help in place of justice, self-help and jungle justice. So in order for the law to actualize what it is intended to do, in order for the law to be the law that guides society, that is the makings, that establish the makings of society, the law must be applied and must be contingent upon a dosage of justice and be applied to reason. That is why the protagonist in that book said, look, if the law presupposes that my wife, who is a domineering person, a domineering wife, that she's working under my direction, then the law must be an ass. So it is my submission that the law is not an ass when it is applied properly and with the correct dose of justice.
Very good. When the law is applied properly,
yes,
with the correct dose of justice,
yes,
and equity,
yes,
which means that some of these terms, actually, the word law is really not necessarily synonymous with equity and justice.
No, it is not.
Okay, and you mentioned something interesting there. You talked about the less privileged and the less fortunate,
yes,
and you talked about a calling. I think, if I understand what you are saying, calling in the sense that you are using is not necessarily the call to bar, but calling as a call to meaning and purpose.
Precisely.
In life.
Precisely.
Okay, that's interesting because we can't take this thing out of our context here. So, when you say the less privileged and the less fortunate, one of the most thought-provoking lyrics I've ever heard in a song is from the song Poor Man's Life by the old Jamaican reggae musician Max Romeo. In that song, Poor Man's Life, he said something. He says, if poverty ain't no crime, then stealing sure ain't none. Can you kindly give us understanding of this?
Fantastic.
And please, let's situate this in the context of a society where we are, where poverty is so rife.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Solomon. If poverty ain't no crime.
If poverty ain't no crime, if poverty ain't no crime, then stealing sure ain't none. Is there any hope for them?
Fantastic. Good. Let me just go to the study framework should really be. We want to refer to section 1441. So 1B of the Constitution that says that the welfare of the governed, the security and welfare of the governed is the end of government.
The welfare,
yes,
and security,
yes,
of the governed,
and the welfare, and at the end of government. Now, this Max Romeo statement, which is a very simple statement, but profound implication. What it tells us, what my takeaway from it is that the government is supposed to be supposed to be geared towards the interest of the poor. How do we locate the what we will call the responsibility, the culpability of the government and the individual with respect to the incidence of poverty? I refer very vividly to the Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his book Social Contracts. A philosopher, then the book already says 1762. And the first sentence in that book, in that treatise, is the very first sentence, and it is very fundamental. It tells us a lot of things. Man is born free, but man is everywhere in chains. Man is born free, but everywhere in chains. What it is portending is that it is only where the man lives in a civil society, where his interests are protected and ensured by the government, by the sovereign, that the real purport of social contract is manifested. Because the man sourced out his freedom to the sovereign in order for the sovereign to protect him, to provide basic needs, to make him access education, for him to participate in the utilization of public goods. Mm-hmm. So if the sovereign fails to provide this, then the responsibility, the culpability for the society degenerating in poverty is actually that of the sovereign.
Okay, interesting. The questions comments are already coming in, yes. But we'll remind us again, the topic today is the law for man or man for the law? Dr. Ken, we want to chip in. This has this question for you.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, last week we spoke extensively about poverty. We spoke extensively in the context of economy when we brought in Professor Ikechukwu Kelikume, and today we are trying to relate that with law. So it brings me really to that relationship between lawless and lawful. In the context of a poor man who is feeling the pangs of poverty and lack of stomach infrastructure. So there are statistics staring me in the face here, which and I quote, it says 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. In the context of this, if they are truly dimensionally poor, you can imagine state of mind. So where do we find now the difference between lawful and lawless? How can people be lawful in the context of this kind of bunch of people that are criminally and dimensionally poor?
Excellent question. It is my thesis that dimensional poverty, multi-dimensional poverty, is a crime, and the crime is perpetrated not by the victims of the poverty, but by those in charge of the affairs of the people. Jeffrey Sachs, in his book, The End of Poverty, a 2005 book, even went ahead to define what poverty is by giving it a perspective. He said poverty could be segmented into three parts: extreme poverty, moderate poverty, and relative poverty. Extreme poverty is where the households does not have the capacity to access the basic needs. Chronically hungry, no access to education, no access to the amenities for clean drinking water or sanitation. Completely out of the roof. Even not having a roof over their head. That is extreme poverty. And it is located more in the developing world or third world countries. And we, remember that Nigeria has taken the dubious title of being the poverty capital of the world. Now, I will not go into the other ones. Are the moderate poverty is when the basic needs are met, but just barely. While the relative poverty is when the household income is below the average, the national average. So we are talking about extreme poverty as what we are facing presently. And he says,
which you say is a crime.
Exactly, which is a crime. And the crime, I must posit, is perpetrated by the state and not the individual. And he goes ahead to say that sometimes it has been argued that it is as a result of the disposition of the person that poverty descends to him, that people are lazy, people do not aspire, people get resigned to poverty, people do not aspire to go beyond their aspirations, and they are consequently condemned to poverty. He said it is not true. What are the main reasons behind the poverty? First, there is deficit in governance. Deficit in governance, lack of development, whether development is intellectual or material, the issue of whether the government should make it conducive, lack of capacity to create a conducive atmosphere for business and for business to thrive. Consequently, there is failure of economic activity, a failure of economic activity which leads to because we don't have the unemployment, our employment rate, as now I understand it is 33%, employment rate, unemployment rate now 33%, and consequently there is a consistent denial of the opportunity for those who are unquote, who are sentenced to poverty to continue. There's no opportunity for them to exit from that
interesting phrase.
Yes.
Sentenced to poverty.
Yes.
Would you want to elaborate on that?
Well, sentenced to poverty, when the society does not discharge its responsibility as enshrined in the Constitution, of course, the impact is what we are having now. Like the president of Nigeria. Every single thing is going down the drain. From 1980s, when, after consultations or whatever with the World Bank and the Bretton Woods institution, Nigeria started devaluing. They didn't call it the devaluation, but our naira got floated or whatever they called it. But from there, from the university, the naira was actually more valuable than the dollar. Well, right now, I understand that as of yesterday, the dollar is like 900 and something to the dollar right now, as it is now. And so then it has been going down. Nigeria has been going down the drain, and everybody's affected. So the way it is, if the poverty indices, if the poverty, the measurement of poverty, which is the household, what the monetary poverty measure is the household measurement of how households are deprived, for example, respect to education, respect to access to education, access to clean water, access to amenities for sanitation. If this is happening, that is what we are going to refer to as multidimensional, because it's not just one thing. You are exposed to many,
which you say,
yes,
by this reasoning is a crime. So we are right to say that Nigeria, as it is a crime scene.
Precisely.
Questions are coming in. Good afternoon, sir. If we don't practice Chinese law in Nigeria, that nobody is above the law, whether you are president, governor, then the law we are talking about is baseless. This is Leo who sent this in from Lagos. Okay, we look at this other issue. Where do people, because we talked about empowerment, for example. Yes. The law, okay, and justice.
Yes.
do they mean the same thing? You have said at the beginning that not necessarily.
Yes.
Or is there any clear or nuanced difference between both? What can law do to free people from this misery
Very good.
that you have described?
Yes. I must tell you that law without justice is an aberration. If the law is lacking in the quotient, in the dosage that of justice that will make it subject to reason and common sense, then like I said, is an aberration. But like I said before, the law has the capacity to edify and the capacity to destroy. Now, what makes the difference? What brings out the result, the different result, is the infusion of justice into the law.
Okay, I think what will be most beneficial to listeners is how does the law free people from this kind of misery?
Excellent.
How do people want to be free from the kind of misery that we are describing?
Very good.
How does law do it?
Very good question. To put it in perspective, let me bring to us the specter of the most obnoxious practice that was ever practiced on man. That is the institution of slavery. The institution of slavery. Okay. That is how we are going to put it in context. In 1867, under the leadership of the Chief Justice of United States Supreme Court, in the case of Drescott and Sanford, the Supreme Court of the United States of America decided that a black man is property, and the black man is not entitled to the interest of a normal person, including the citizenship of America. That was a decision by the third arm of government, United States. It continued. Immediately that was the decision was made with other factors. The American Civil War was activated. That a 4-year war was fought between the United States of America and 11 seceding states who call themselves Confederate States of America.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
The issue of law and justice, I'm very sure that before we get to the tail end of the program, we'll deal with it sufficiently. And especially the example Barrister Onwuka tried to put up now is so relevant and so key. But if I may just interject, and I still go back to the economics of it. Now, the buzzword around government, just to demonstrate dexterities and tell us that there is some kind of solution and deep thinking going is around taxation. All you hear these days is taxation. If you're not careful, you will think it's a bullet solution that will finally deliver us from the predicament we've found ourselves. So, where do people who lack opportunity, who lack empowerment and lack security get the income to pay taxes? Is the tail not wagging the dog here, Barrister Onwuka?
Excellent. In answering this question, I must agree with Dr. Professor Farid Zakaria, who is the host of a Global Public Square, in his book, The Future of Freedom. And in that book, which was written in 2005, he argues that countries that run their government by taxation are much more people sensitive, and they are more responsive to people and accountable than those that run their affairs on resource or commodities. Commodities revenue that we get from the commodities that we do not refine anyway. So I will say that why tax is a good thing if it is properly done. But the thing is that before taxation comes into, there must be economic activity. There must be economic activity contingent upon what you impose taxes. If there's no economic activity, how would you pay taxes? How are you going to pay that? From where? The way it is, it's an oxymoron. There's no way you can be charged to pay taxes by the taxing authority unless, of course, there's an income coming to you, whether they be personal income, whether be the company income. There must be something that you're earning, something that will make you amenable to. And remember what was said by Machiavelli. Machiavelli said that the leader does not have to know God, but he must be seen to be religious. The essence of that is so that he can mount upon the superior moral pedestal and tell the people, look at what you should do. And the people will have a buy-in into it. If they do not have the buy-in into it, then the essence is gone, because the best way to make a person do something well is to make him want to do it. If there's no rush, if you're not making any earning, how are you going to pay taxes?
Interesting, because the biblical story of Egypt in biblical times.
Yes.
Okay, we recall the case of Pharaoh telling the people to make to build bricks.
Yes.
Without straw.
Precisely.
Okay. That situation is there, and today is a Sunday, so if we can take recourse to the Bible in Micah chapter 6 verse 8. It says, he has shown thee, O man, what is good and what is required of you, to love justice, to have mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And humility here, to clarify it, is not humility in the sense that we understand it. Humility is understanding that God created man and created the world. And so because he did so, he knows what is right. So humility is to do things the way that he wants it to be done, not the way you think that you should do it. So when the productive force, which taxes should come from, is not increased, rather most of the productive force are running away.
Precisely.
And even rather ready to pay this, they are ready to go and pay these taxes.
Yes.
More, okay, in percentages, in relative percentages that they put here in Nigeria. What is the economics of wisdom or even justice in all of this noise about taxes?
Fantastic. That is exactly what I'm saying, and I appreciate your intervention, Solomon, because unless the government, there's a governance system that leads to the normal investment strategies, like infrastructure, investment in infrastructure, employment generation, conducive atmosphere for carrying out business, which will lead to employment. Yeah. There's no anybody talking about that tax at this stage is not being fair to the dictates, the precept, the postulates of Section 14. 1B. What does it say? What it says is that the security and the welfare of the people is the end of government. And if you're not doing that, how would you convince the people? There are three constituents of power. Three constituents of power, which I'm going to describe. Three of them. There's force, there's authority, there is persuasion. How do you do? And the most long-lasting are the buy-ins you get from persuasion. And there's no way you can do. The only way you can persuade people is to do the right thing, so that they will take advantage of the result of those things you are doing. To feel that they are. And look, when you feel that you should do something, you do well. And maybe if you're enjoying the amenities, if you're every single thing you go well, you buy your fuel well, you drive across the wonderfully tarred roads, you go to your house, there's light in your house, there's way, touch the tap, the water runs, and there's a bill that comes in from the government. You pay this. Any person with conscience will rush to pay it.
Conscience?
Yes.
Good. It's clear that there's a morality to all of this.
Yes.
Dr. Ken, you want to say something?
I'm really enjoying this part of the conversation because, especially in the context, I feel it from where I'm speaking. I've had the rare privilege of swinging between Europe and America in the last 2 weeks. And as I speak with you, today is Sunday in New York, and I'm looking at the atmosphere, I'm looking at the streets. What is clear to me is that I'm seeing two types of economies. I'm seeing religious economy and science economy. What I've seen in Europe the last 2 weeks and America now is science economy. What I've seen in Nigeria the last 60 years is religious economy. And what I mean by that is that when the white man sees something that confounds him, he moves back and go and think and finds a solution to deal with that. But the black man sees something that confounds him, he moves back, go and find calabash, put at the foot of that stone, and begin to worship it. So it takes me to the difference between perspiration and inspiration. In Nigeria, in Africa, is this religious economy not the problem? Do we perspire or we just inspire? It's all about inspiration. And when you Google inspiration, what jumps out is miracle or intervention or hope. So where is the law and our custom and sense of interpretation in all of this?
Very good. Very good. Then, well, like I said, that I don't know whether to subscribe to the religious inspiration, but I keep saying that there are things that we must just do in order to make the people buy into a process. In order, a leader, like I keep saying, it does not really have to know God. That's what Machiavelli said in his nihilist. What people say was a nihilist.
That resonates. I really like that quote. It resonates with me.
Very good. So because analyzing what I just listed, force. Authority, force of course is ultimate sanctioned law. Authority like acts, decrees, bylaws. But persuasion is the intangible factor of leadership. The intangible factor of leadership, where a leader must sympathize with those leading. The leader should be able to command the men free. That is why what Just Baba said in the presidential character. A leader should not be driven, but he must have drive. A leader must have drive, but he must not be driven. So if there's no such thing as convincing the people, look at what you will do, look at how you do it, look at the rationale behind it, nobody's going to react to that leadership. And that is why we are saying that possibly there needs to be a kind of change with respect to what we're experiencing presently. Starting from the time, to 2015, right to this moment.
Good. Persuasion, you say.
Yes.
Okay. It should be the key word.
Yes.
But there's another Sean here,
yes,
which I see is what is more popular, which is regulation.
Yes.
Okay. Regulation is a big word that is often spoken in conversations.
Precisely.
When you are talking about social order and these issues.
Yes.
Okay. You may want to offer a position or advice on the role and responsibility of the law profession in national development in this regard. Because what we keep hearing is that people will be regulated, we keep legislating things. You don't see any attempt to persuade people. You don't see any attempt to try to convince people by reason of what has been done to make them see as rational thinking human beings that said, okay, this is why we are doing this. Like Dr. Ken said, it is not a problem for people abroad to want to pay tax by whatever percentages. The reason is because they see what it is used for.
Precisely.
But here it is regulation. So the way we legislate, we regulate. If you don't do it, you are forced, okay, to do whatever is expected. Meanwhile, there is no attempt at actually persuading people and making them come to reason that this is a good thing that should be done. What's the role and responsibility of the law profession in this regard? Yes. Because we're talking about actually national development here and having people come along and give their buy-in to attempts by leadership.
Precisely. Just going back, I should still refer back to what I said about the law being the law, applying to the people, regulating the people, guiding the conduct of people. If the people believe in it,
regulating the people.
Yes.
Okay.
If the people believe that, how do they believe in it? That I will go back to that word, that persuasion, that persuasion. It is people who will be asking. Look, there is one concept in Italian. In Italy, sometime during the manipulator issue, scandal, one of the things that was being described was that, look, Avogadro is the word. Avogadro, that in spite of government, the people will exist. If the government has done everything, people will not really care who is on the seat. If the government does what it should do, people will not be. This issue of the do or die election fought upon do or die, I must be here, I must be there. It will not come up because the people are going on with their businesses. They are making out their business. They are training their children. They are accessing the very best, accessing healthcare. The majority of the people, there are those who will still be interested in going forward, going to politics to occupy position. But generally, the people will be more convinced, buy into the process.
It sounds like we are going to the word conscience.
Yes.
Okay, they are okay.
Very
Are
good.
we talking about conscience here?
Fantastic. Because look, the way it is, our society is so convoluted right now that we can only refer to it as a country guided and propelled by the concept of seared conscience. Seared conscience, where everything goes. Everything. As a matter of fact, the oblicum, the thing in the society, that the bad aspect of societal relationship as what are celebrated now by the people. Because there is no reason to believe in the goodness of intellectual purity at all, moral value judgment. These days, nobody really cares about what you do as long as you come out showing off, living a life of affluence. Nobody really cares about it these days. So we have descended into the hell of the effect of seared conscience.
So are we talking Machiavelli 2.0 now? It's Machiavelli who said the end justifies the means. Somebody says the end justifies the meanness. So no matter the meanness of the strategies and principles that you have used, so long as the end has been achieved.
Precisely.
That's okay. Yes, by the way, listeners, what we are discussing today is the law for man or man for the law.
Excellent.
In the context of that, that's why these conversations and these questions have come up. So let's bring the listeners and the larger population into this conversation to things they can actually chew and process. And I'm talking about culture. Now, to the law affects people and society in personal matters, of course we know. So what is the place of culture in framing law? An example is marriage, for example. And this is on a lighter note now, so that it's a Sunday, so that we calm down a bit. Why is there, for example, law for marriage? Shouldn't an African man have his traditional marriage and stick with it, rather than being guided and guarded by received foreign legal code? Why the registry, for example? Is this our custom and our law?
Very good, very good. Let me state that marriage, like most cultures, are contingent on what the people accept. I will say that marriage, in this, there are marriages in Nigeria that are the marriage under the Act, the Marriage Act, and there is a cultural, the traditional marriage is still respected and recognized by the law. The only place there's a departure is when there are proceedings for the dissolution of marriage, in which case the traditionally married people go to customary courts, Sharia courts, while the people under the Act gravitate to the high courts. Look, let me also say that marriage is a contract. And let me just come with this right as something. If you remember the principle of mergers and acquisition. Mm-hmm. Like beauty, they say marriage is usually the eye of the interpreter. When you look at marriage from the eyes of the wife, oftentimes they always see marriage as a measure of equals.
Yeah.
But the man interprets it in a different perspective, and the man sees the marriage as an acquisition. These are, but generally, the African man, that is the African man considers marriage as an acquisition. But the modern times now see these unions as maybe the coming together of two equals. That is why possibly.
So then, is it the African man now, yes, or is it the modern man? Yes. Is it modernity versus tradition now?
Yeah, well,
because you are bringing geography to the whole, yes, issue, African.
Yes, we are trying to balance out this. But what the final issue is that eventually marriage is a contract that is between a man and a woman, and there's nothing actually that detracts or derogates from the traditional marriage, except that probably in the process of God forbid, if there's a dissolution, we at least do not believe in dissolution of marriage. But if the thing comes down to that, it is why there will be a gravitation to Matrimonial Causes Act.
Okay.
Yes. But like every culture, like everything that has to do with law that I was saying, because I was making a distinction between the capacity of the law to edify and the capacity of the law to destroy. And I just cited the case of the judgment of the Supreme Court AC-67 that said that an African American was property. And he was not entitled to the rights of a normal human being, including the citizenship of America. But later, after the Civil War, even though there were amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, which tried to provide make a way to provide the soft ground for the Negro. Still, the Supreme Court of America, in the case of Plessy and Ferguson, also ruled, that was also about how many years after, just 1899, they also ruled that the state, a practice by the state of Louisiana, that the provision of rare cars, different rare cars for blacks and white was legal, which in effect institutionalized apartheid. But how the law now comes to defy, that was the area of the law completely was destroying in that place. But how did the law come to defy?
Sorry, yes. I'm sure Dr. Ken will want yes, in this area of guided by a received foreign legal code.
Yes, because I understand you, but I still want, because should we be guided in Africa, especially in the case of Nigeria, in the context of marriage, should we be guided by our culture or by law? What I know by that is that shouldn't a man, just after his traditional wedding, know that he's married and he stops there? Why do we add these, other aspects of it that it looks like law and something foreign and a foreign code to it, which is the registry, which is the certification of it, and blah, blah, blah. So and in the context of the reality of economy today, you can imagine what budget you need if you were to do introduction, do traditional wedding, then do the white wedding. Imagine if the reality, if the Senate now decided that we are not going to concentrate more on need, not want. So the need now is traditional marriage, and you're married. You call your people, they have merriment after that, once there is agreement between the families, and you're legally married in our culture. So is it law that is a problem here now, or a different kind of understanding that was imposed on us by colonization?
Yes, I believe that if you like, you have rightly said, and Solomon is also acceding to. Look, the culture is on its own, and we are adopting what we are adopting just because of the pressure mounted by a party to the marriage. A party to the marriage, for example, the Marriage Act says that real marriages are the union of one man to one woman. But in African culture, you could take as many as you want to do in the traditional. So I think it is more a pressure brought about by the weaker. I don't want to call women the weaker sex, but women, they want to get married and be the main person in the house. So I believe that is my own acceptment of...
What do you mean, main person?
Yeah, main wife. Because ordinarily, if you are wedded in a church, or you have a registry, you are through the registry, you are likely to be the man's, because one of the grounds for dissolution of marriage stated in section 15 of the Matrimonial Courts Act is that if a marriage can be considered as irretrievably broken down, if the man is into another woman, now let me just stop there. But the woman herself wants a kind of security by insisting that even after the traditional marriage, because we all do traditional marriage, but they still want to be married in the church under the Marriage Act.
Good. I think it's a good thing that we're looking at this. Is this for man? Is the law? Is it meant for man or man for the law? Because that issue seems to be struggling to come out here. Yes. Because there's something I know about a church marriage, for example. Yes. The real issue why people want to marry in church, they will tell you, Christians will tell you that it is about what I'm going to be asking now about the Japanese or the Scandinavians. It is a man is asked, do you take this person to be your wife?
Precisely.
And he says yes. The other says that, do you take this person to be your husband? He says yes. Which means that there is an agreement. And that's the whole crux of it. Because still on culture, in the Scandinavian countries and in Japan, a thumbs up or a sign is enough and sacrosanct in agreement. People are even beginning to accept in law now that even the emoji that says thumbs up, is accepted in law in some countries as legal, as something you can put in a legal document. Okay, so the question really, is it that it is law that is actually, is it that is law that we're actually talking about, or colonial impositions?
Yes, very good.
That's the crux of this conversation.
Very, very good.
Yes. Because if a man says, I agree to marry her and she agrees to marry me, then it is sealed because it is the two people who are there and the contract is already made. It's like people saying that this man says he gives a handshake and the contract is made. So the whole idea of the letter that we are talking about, I think that we're actually going in the area of conscience. Yes. You get it? Yes. There is an old song in those days by a band called Undisputed Truth. Yes. Okay, it says, make your own heaven and hell right here on it. There's a line in it. It says, life is a giant invisible scale with two sides, good and bad. And you and your beliefs are your weights. And your conscience is your judge and your jury. Okay? Is it the law that makes a man determine that he will stick to his wife?
Very good.
Or otherwise?
Very good. That is...
or vice versa?
Yes. Ordinarily, like I said, we have the contract that, like I said, marriage is a contract.
Yes.
Whether traditional marriage, whether it is updated to church marriage, like you just emphasize. But one thing about the traditional marriage is that there is a feeling that a party, one of the parties, may not be enjoying full security.
Okay.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to, and like you talked about the emojis and just the raising of hand being a kind of
and the word of mouth.
Serious. So let me just say that about 90% of the contracts we execute, we enter into today, 90% of them are unwritten. When you hail a taxi, take me to Ikoyi, and the taxi say, come in, that's a contract.
It is.
When you come and go into a restaurant, let me have beans and rice. And the person says, okay, I'm coming over. The person is going to give you beans and rice. It is a contract for which you will pay. If you eat the beans and rice, you don't pay, you are failed in the contract. And then there is, with respect to interpretation, like I said, that interpretation of, there must be the interpretation of the law infused with justice. I keep saying, as an arbitrator, that my award is that law is for the man. Man makes the law. Man enforces the law. Man is a rational being. If the man does all this, then whether we like it or not, man is the master of the law.
It's interesting. I can't believe it that we are 52 minutes gone. There is a nagging question that really would have come out of this, which is the whole idea of conscience and justice. Okay. It's sounding to me that we may have to take that. We're already 53 minutes. 3 minutes gone. Dr. Ken, what do you think? Because
in 2.0 sometime before the end of the year on this topic. We cannot exhaust law and man. But there's a message that has just come in, and the guy is saying that the lawyers are the major problem of countries, especially the likes of Nigeria. Do you agree with that? He is saying that the lawyers are very important, but that they are destructive.
Excellent. That's a good question, because one of the reasons I read law was somebody told me that lawyers are buried upside down. I wanted to observe it, and I went to a burial of it. And at a certain stage, when the judge, who was dressed in the legal uniform, was being now derobed in order to just give him a tie and shirt, and I saw that immediately we came out from the room where he was being dressed. People started running away. It was the one judge, and you know, these are what you call fables. Mm-hmm. Look, I was just going to, you just brought up this issue so that for me to come to the level of explaining why the law can also defy. Because on the 17th of May 1954, the most famous case in the United States with respect to the rise of man was delivered by United States Supreme Court again, led by this time by Warren, who was the Chief Justice. And he said, in the areas where education is concerned, it is our finding that there is no, in the area where education is concerned, it is our finding that there is no there's no place for equal and for equality. Once it is a matter when there is a distinction between where the blacks will stay and where the white will stay, then the equality goes out the window. It is inherently unequal to have two separate issues or two separate arrangements for the black and the white. And that was exactly why the lawyers, because the judges are lawyers also. So the law can also defy, and it is usually through the instrumentality of a lawyer, a judge. So the lawyers are not the problem of this country. The problem of this country are beyond lawyers. Lawyers are just handmaids of yes.
The guy who sent it letter, he said the jury is out on that. Well, how time flies? We have maybe 5 minutes.
Yes. And you know, we normally come with our song, whatever. But Dr. Ken, I have a question to ask.
Yes, I think that's the question I'm coming with, actually, because by the way, Barrister Onwuka, most of my friends are lawyers, and it's deliberate, because when I sit with them, I don't go out of such meetings, or even if it's social meetings, without being enriched, especially in the area of curiosity and contemporary relevance.
Yes.
I've learned a lot from them. But there's this claim, and most times on a lighter note, and I ask two questions. Why do lawyers claim the monopoly of being learned? Because in some circles where we sit, you hear listening learned, and other ones are educated. What is the difference? Then the second question is that you yourself, you know that I've been called to the bar over 30 years. For more than 30 years now, I've been called to the bar. At least you see me at the bar at the Court Club. So,
the phrase that the lawyer is a learned person does not emanate from the lawyer. It is because of the client's relationship with the lawyer that makes the lawyer. It is the lawyer who, in the course of the trial of a murder trial, has to ask the doctor the question with respect to the certificate that evidence the death of the deceased. The difference between laparotomy, for example, and autopsy. It is the lawyer who will ask a lawyer, an engineer, who is being charged for for being behind a building that collapsed, whether he thought very well about the strength of materials or the weight-bearing strength, the strength of the weight-bearing beam. It is the lawyer who. So it is Dr. Ken. You and Solomon, you guys are very educated. The learnedness it imbues in the lawyer because of what is expected to do. We are supposed to know little about everything. Okay. And that is
not a problem. We'll have our own time in the court of public opinion.
Fantastic.
It's good. You know, we usually end with a proverb. Yes. And the song.
My own proverb first, and my proverb for the week is that there is no shortcut to the top of the palm tree.
Very good. Thank you.
And I'd like listeners to take, especially the younger ones who have tuned in today. If you're thinking of success, if you are thinking of prosperity and you want to move to the next level, forget those unfortunate role models a lot of people have followed in the past.
Yes. My own proverb is because of what we are going through now. There is a Yoruba proverb translated into English. It says, no matter how widely the broadcast of a ram swings, it will never break. And I understand. And that is what, because by the grace of God, it is going to be better for us maybe sometime in the next few years.
Thank you so very much, Barrister Igwe. Your song.
Yeah, my song is, of course, Jibri's song, We Thank Thee, O Lord.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful time with you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.